Well, friends, good afternoon. Pastor Pete here at the church on the 4th day of January. And as you know, we have been wandering our way through or pondering our way through the book of Proverbs, and we've decided that we will spend this month walking through the 31 days in January with 31 meditations and readings through the book of Proverbs. Now, I'm not going to be doing a video for 31 days, but each day that I do it will be taking the day of that particular day's reading. And so what we're doing is each day just open your Bibles, take a chapter, read it through and think through. If this video series would be helpful for you to meditate through some of the details, then we'd be glad for that. And so because today is January 4th, we'll look at Proverbs chapter 4. And let me read that out, and then we'll look at some of the comments through it. The writer says, "Hear, O sons, a father's instruction, and be attentive that you may gain insight. For I give good precepts, do not forsake my teaching. When I was a son with my father, tender, the only one in the sight of my mother, he taught me and said to me, let your heart hold fast my words. Keep my commandments and live. Get wisdom, get insight. Do not forget and do not turn away from the words of my mouth. Do not forsake her. She'll keep you. Love her and she'll guard you. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. And whatever you get insight. Prize her highly and she'll exalt you. She will honor you if you embrace her. She will place on your head a graceful garland, and she will bestow on you a beautiful crown. Hear, my son, and accept my words, that the years of your life may be many. I have taught you the way of wisdom. I've led you in the path of righteousness. When you walk, your step will not be hampered, and if you run, you will not stumble. So keep hold of instruction. Do not let go. Guard her, for she is your life." Verse 14 says, "Do not enter the path of the wicked, and do not walk in the way of the evil. Avoid it. Do not go on it. Turn away from it and pass on. Because they cannot sleep unless they have done wrong. They are robbed of sleep unless they have made someone stumble. For they eat the bread of wickedness, and they drink the wine of violence. But the path of the righteous is like the light of dawn, which shines brighter and brighter until full day. The way of the wicked is like deep darkness, for they do not know over what they stumble. My son, be attentive to my words. Incline your ear to my sayings. Let them not escape from your sight. Keep them within your heart, for they are life to those who find them, and healing to all their flesh. So keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flows the well springs of life. Put away from you crooked speech, and put devious talk far from you. Let your eyes look directly forward, and your gaze be straight before you. Ponder the path of your feet, and then all your ways will be sure. Do not swerve to the right or to the left. Turn your foot away from evil." Well, as we ponder through the Proverbs, let's wander around the church here a little bit. We are not meeting, as you know, and one day soon it would be wonderful if these doors were open again to welcome you here. There's a fair bit of snow in our area, at least today. It's different than when you were here. Seems odd in some ways to even have our driveway bothering to be plowed. We should do it, of course. You don't want it all to build up. But it seems you plow the driveway and the next day it's just put all gone anyway. life changes pretty fast in Toronto, in particular in these winter months. We'll see if we can get by the side of the church here without the dog so often jumps out at you. Maybe you don't wander around the church like I do. Surely you don't like I do. But so there's a couple of aspects of the proverb that we looked at that come relatively immediately to mind. One of those is in the magnificent verse, which I memorized a few years ago, to keep your heart with all diligence. I think the ESV says vigilance. I memorized it in the NASB, but to keep your heart with all vigilance, for out of it flows the springs of life. And of course, this is Solomon writing in really broad, helpful categories for us who think, listen, there's a kind of motivations and things that we focus on, things that we love and live for, that flow from our hearts. Our hearts are, as John Piper calls it, desire factories. And John Flavel was a writer. I'll give you the link in this video for the book. I'll have to actually look up the date of it, because I believe John Flavel wasn't a Puritan but came before the Puritans. I may be wrong on that number, but you'll see the details in the bottom of the video here. But Flavel wrote this book called Keeping the Heart, and it was one of the first ones that Kev had me read as a new Christian and training, in that case, to be a pastor. I think many of you know that my calling to Christ and my calling to the pastorate were almost simultaneous in my experience. They were probably less than 12 months apart, but always felt like once God called me to himself, he called me to the gospel ministry in a vocational way. And as I was reading through Keeping the Heart, it was really clear that this wise pre or actual Puritan man was telling us that there are certain things that flow from the desires of our life that really are the things that control our lives. And you know, one of the challenges when it comes to issues of the heart are issues of humility and humbly using the knowledge that we have. That's what wisdom is. We've been saying all along as we've been walking through these proverbs that it's the use of information, the use of knowledge, the use of data, and the proper use of it. And surely the proper use of data includes using it in a humble way. These last few days we have heard much of the lack of wisdom of many of our politicians across our land, who disregarded the restrictions that their parties put upon the rest of the populace to not travel outside of the country. Now, they didn't put a directive in the sense of a law. So these are not people that are breaking the law, but these are people that were not living up to the expectations that their parties had put on them by putting them on the rest of us. And so there are a number of them who've lost their portfolios within government. I don't think any of them have actually removed their, either themselves or been removed from their actual seat in government, but some of them have lost their positions, and some of them have, even in their own integrity, stepped down from some of those positions because they recognized that they just couldn't survive it. Now, who knows what those motivations are? And one of the things that I want to say about that is that in our own act of humility and focusing on and keeping our hearts, is that we need to recognize that one of the reasons that those things bother us so much is because these folks are just like us. And for some reason we feel like either the politicians get a pass or the politicians get beat up more than we do. And it's just not fair. These are real men and women for whom we ought to pray, for whom we ought to give thanks to God, and for whom we ought to ask God's help for them on our behalf to really help us to see our province governed and our country governed well, especially during these difficult COVID days. Now, that's not me giving them a pass. That's me not giving us a pass. Because way too often what you and I will do in these times is not exercise any kind of humility at all, but simply say how stupid they were even if we didn't do exactly the same thing. Well, why is that? Look at that. Think about that. Connect to the motivations that we had and consider in the best light possible the motivations that they may have had. It's quite understandable that folks want to get away for a holiday. Pam and I were just saying the other day that, you know, we go back in January, and for the last number of years, we've been able to get away in early January down in the warmer climes, and we've gone and rested and recharged. And hey, we're not able to do that this year. We have understood that it's just not wise. But listen, there's folks who have worked hard. There are folks who've missed their families. There are folks who have not seen their families at all. And some of us are sitting there going, well, I saw my family, but you know, I didn't go out of the country to do it, because it's like those guys over there, those gals. Friends, one of the things that wisdom does for us is it grows in us a sense of humble self-examination, honest, even frank examination of ourselves sometimes. And it helps us to understand that, listen, they were wrong in the things that they did. They're just like us, recognize that, and we're just like them. Because there's way too much of a wrong use of the data, content of the scriptures that God gives us, that we're simply not applying in the way that God would have us apply it. And so, you know, you come through Proverbs chapter 4 and you think, okay, early on, is it verse 5 there where he says, the beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom. Don't just think about it. Don't just make it a goal. Don't just have it theoretical. Don't just think of it as some kind of good idea, but get it, reach out, receive it. Make sure that as we're walking through these aspects of prudence, which I'm using to rhyme with Proverbs. I know this is my little thing that we're pondering the pursuit of prudence as we ponder the Proverbs with Pastor Pete in the parking lot of, anyway, once we do that, the thing is that the right use of wisdom can only be achieved if we first reach out to get it. And so grab on, link closely with these things, cling to it. It says that it's not just something that's theoretical, but that it's something that really does have some feet, so that the paths that we walk, which are all throughout the passages here, will really be life-changing and life-affecting. Encourage you, dear friends, to consider doing this with us. If this is the first time you've watched one of these, it's only the 4th of January. You've got lots of time to catch up. Just grab your Bible with your family. Do that first thing in the morning. Do it just before the children go to bed at night, or you go to bed with your spouse, however your nightly or morning routines are, and we'll go from there. Hey there! There's Kristen next door at the church watching me wander around with my video camera here. All right, friends. Look forward to seeing you soon. Cheers.